Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everybody here today. So today is a very special event for everybody because it's our Fulbright Taiwan Exploration Forum. And this is a very important session for everybody because it's the right time for you to understand Taiwan more. And also it's our honor to invite different speakers to tell us different aspects of Taiwan's culture. So to begin with, let's invite our Executive Director, Dr. Nadeau, to give us some words.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? I think some of you are in quarantine and some of you are still in the US, and hope everyone's doing well. This is a special morning for us to introduce to you some of our really great partners who support us and provide funding for us and lots of other supports for our programs. I think I may have said something about this the other day, but basically we exist as an ETA program because of the support of our partners. And the administrative body of the ETA program is our foundation, the Foundation for Scholarly Exchange. And that foundation consists of membership from Taiwan government, US government, and other people from education and the private sector. So we really depend upon them. We're very grateful to them for all the support that they give us. And we really enjoy working with them to make this program as strong as we can make it. So you ETAs and ETFs, you are the beneficiaries of this support and this cooperation. So I have the honor this morning of introducing three speakers to you, and I'll do them one by one before they speak. The first one will be our closest friend and confidant and supporter, which is Nicole Lee. Nicole is the Director General of the Department of International and Cross-Strait Education of Taiwan's Ministry of Education. In other words, she is responsible for and oversees international cooperation for all of Taiwan's education system. So her position is very important, and we're really honored that she can join us this morning. And we're especially honored, or even more so, that we get to work with her on a daily basis. The Ministry of Education cooperates with us, supports us in a number of ways, certainly through the ETA program and the local cities and counties, but also in a number of other programs. And we consider ourselves to be very fortunate partners with Taiwan's Ministry of Education. So please join me in thanking and welcoming Nicole Lee, Deputy General Nicole Lee, to give us a few words of welcome to all of you. Nicole, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nadeau. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be invited by Dr. Nadeau to meet you online this morning. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, I would like to sincerely welcome all of you, more than 200 American teaching assistants to Taiwan. We are aware that Fulbright Taiwan is the second largest ETA program in the world, with one of the most well-known and comprehensive support and operational system. I saw your incredible and intensive summer training schedule prepared by FSE And I believe that you must have already learned a lot in the past few days. In addition to your outstanding academic backgrounds, and also have support and guidance from FSE professional TEFL advisor. Fulbright Taiwan really has accumulated and shaped the highly quality of teacher training resource for you all to help you achieve your goal of helping our students to elevate their English proficiency. So we know that Fulbright Taiwan has a strong faith in promoting mutual understanding through cross-cultural exchange and language learning. And we truly believe that you are one of the key elements to nurturing our student English development and the global awareness. As the Director General of the Department of International and Coastal Education in Ministry of Education, I am very pleased with the opportunity to have to collaborate with the Fulbright Taiwan as we share the common goal to develop and facilitate international education. This year, we will further our partnerships with Fulbright and work in higher education in Taiwan as well. There are 2 universities that will have an FSE supporting team to assist with their EMI program. It's including National Taipei University of Technology and the National Central University in Hsinchu. I have a strong faith in all of you and your capability to support our English education. At the same time, I welcome you to visit and explore the natural beauty of Taiwan. You will love the people, love your students, and your school here. I still think it's amazing to have so many of you here to help us share to our friendship. And I want to express my sincere of your devotion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Deputy General Lee, Director General Lee, we do really enjoy working with you, and we really appreciate all of your efforts that you are making, especially in the area of English language education. And I know that Ministry of Education is taking the leadership role in President Tsai Ing-wen's goal to make Taiwan a bilingual nation by the year 2030.
Yes,
and I think, yeah, I know you're working very, very hard to do that. And of course, it's not just including us here at Fulbright. We are one of your partners, but you have other programs, don't you, to work on English language education, on bilingual education throughout Taiwan. Yeah. And I think, you know, the effort is.
Thank you.
Yes, we really hope that we're able to be a part of all of those efforts. I think that for President Tsai or for Taiwan generally, of course, that English language education is important as a way to participate in the global community and to empower Taiwan, especially Taiwanese young people, the people that we're educating, to empower them to to be able to express themselves in English, to be engaged with the world outside, to develop all of their language skills, that is their English and their Chinese language skills, and even indigenous language skills and others. In other words, really kind of multilingual education is part of what you do at MOE.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and you know, it's a huge job. You know, it's a big challenge. And I think it's amazing what you have achieved already. I think there are certainly a lot of challenges, and this will take time and take a lot of effort.
Yes.
But we really appreciate and applaud you for
Yes,
all that you do.
And I also want to thank you for Dr. Nada for your devotion and contribution to our English program. And I also have some suggestion to all the ETA and the other advisor. If it's have this a good, I think it's a good bridge and opportunity for our school, particularly for the K-12 school. They would like to establish for the sister partnership with the school in the United States. So if you have the connection with the K-12 school in United States, please help our K-12 school to connect and establish the bridge to be a sister partner for them. Maybe have an exchange program for the student, even for the teachers, or they can also co-organize for the online teaching course together. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you, Nicole. And one other thing I would like just to mention, Nicole, is that we really, I think for you at MOE, you encourage this ETA program. In other words, for all of you ETAs who are just joining us, who are just starting, that this could be a stepping stone to further engagement here in Taiwan. So we have ETFs who are staying on. In other words, they were ETAs last year. And we also have some new ETF participants who have joined us, and other ways that MOE encourages you to continue your engagement in Taiwan. I think for you, new ETAs, many of you will find that you form such close relationships with your co-teachers and with your schools and your students and your communities that you really want to stay in Taiwan and at least extend beyond a year. And I know MOE encourages that.
Another year, so that will be follow the next year. Welcome to stay to Taiwan.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you again so much, Director General Lee. It's a pleasure to have you joining us this morning. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nicole. Okay, now, Kevi, are you there? Sorry, am I ready to introduce our next speaker, or do we wait until 10 o'clock for that part?
I think we can proceed.
Okay, we can proceed. Great. Okay, then thank you again, Director General Lee, for joining us this morning. Our next speaker is the Senior Advisor at the Foreign Service Institute in the United States, Dr. Jared Pendleton. Dr. Pendleton was formerly the principal of the Chinese language school at AIT. That is, he was the director of the Language Institute that is contained within our American Institute in Taiwan, and providing Chinese language training to our diplomats who come to Taiwan, and I believe even some diplomats who are going to the mainland for their Chinese language education. And Dr. Pendleton served as the principal of the school for 4 years. And about a year ago, I think almost now, returned to the United States, where he is, as I mentioned, the senior advisor for the Foreign Service Institute. I neglected to mention that Director General Lee, whom you just met, is also a member of the board of Fulbright Taiwan. And Jared Pendleton, whom you're about to meet, was formerly, when he was here in Taiwan, the chair of the board of Fulbright Taiwan. So Jared is no longer in that capacity, but he is an alumni of the Fulbright board. And we very much appreciated all of his support and cooperation. In fact, when I first started the job as executive director 3 years ago, Dr. Pendleton was the board chair at that time, and we enjoyed a really strong collaborative relationship. So, so Jared is kind of an eternal friend of FSE, and we're really happy to invite him to give you a greeting as well this morning. So Jared, are you there and ready to give your remarks?
I'm here. I'm ready. Can everybody hear me?
Fantastic. Welcome, Jared.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited. As Dr. Nadeau said, and greetings to Dr. Nadeau and to Director General Lee, to Dr. Lee, and to the staff over at FSE, and to all of you. I really miss being there in Taiwan. Like Dr. Nadeau said, I was there for 4 years this last time. I've lived in Taiwan about 3 different times, and I can talk a little bit about my background here in a minute, but yeah, we certainly miss Taiwan. We left about a year ago, and we talk about Taiwan every single day. And so you guys, congratulations on this opportunity to be a part not only of what's happening in Taiwan, but obviously part of Fulbright. And what I really liked right there about what Dr. Nadeau said, and I thank him for calling me a couple things: alumni. I like being affiliated with Fulbright in some way as an alumni, and then also an eternal friend, because yeah, I love these programs, and I couldn't be more excited for you guys. This is a great time in your life to really, serve and learn and grow. And Dr. Nadeau said another thing about a stepping stone. And maybe through some of my remarks, you can see that some of these early experiences in Taiwan can be stepping stones for the rest of your life, not only for further Fulbright service potentially, but also for, serving within Taiwan and for Taiwan, or, serving American interests and Taiwanese interests longer term throughout your lives. And that's certainly what happened in my case. And like I said, I can give a background here in a minute about how I got started in my Taiwan experience. But again, congratulations to all of you. I hope you take full advantage of this. And as Dr. Lee said in her remarks, she has strong faith in all of you. And I'd like to echo that faith. We need good people to understand Taiwan. We need good people to work on those people-to-people ties. And you are a part of that. And I hope you all feel like that in very real ways. You are like diplomats, like ambassadors. Dr. Nadeau mentioned AIT, where I work, the American Institute in Taiwan. That's our, we can't have an official embassy there because of the Taiwan Relations Act and our One China policy. But in terms of how it functions, AIT is very much like an embassy. It's our representative office there so that we can maintain what we call unofficial relations. But a big part of that are these people-to-people ties. And you guys are very much on the ground, a huge part of that. So I hope you consider yourselves as, I like cool words. I like ambassador, envoy, representative. I hope you guys think of yourselves as that. You really are. Those connections, those interconnections matter. The word in Chinese for like diplomacy, foreign engagement is 外交. And that jiao, that second character, I love that character. It has so many different meanings. And that's what's, the Chinese language is so rich. And I hope you'll have a chance to learn some. You know, if you haven't learned any before, learn some. If you've already got a start or a foundation, I hope you'll build on that. But that jiao, you know, that character it means so much. And, you know, it means in many respects, you know, it means about making friends. It means exchange. It means connection, you know. And so I really love that word. And I hope you'll remember that. And in that very real sense, you guys are Waijiao. You guys are very much diplomats and representatives, you know, of Fulbright, of America, of these ideals, of education. Let me just start with one thing. Now, some of you, if you were here a year ago, you heard me speak too. So maybe you know my shtick a little bit. I can't remember if I used this exact example, but I'm going to use it here as a way to kind of show you a little bit about me and a little bit about why I think your experience in Taiwan can be fulfilling, not only now, but in the long run. So I don't know if you can see what I'm holding here. This is a baseball, right? So it says official Major League Baseball. I got this in 2010. So what is a Major League Baseball, or what does baseball have to do with what you guys are doing, with language instruction, with cultural exchange? You know, actually, I'm a historian by training, and I love baseball, so I could wax profound for hours about the connections of all this. But I'm going to give you a quick story about, you know, it relates to my early experiences in Taiwan, and then how I've been able to, you know, continue that and have a connection with Taiwan and represent America and represent, you know, these people-to-people connections. So in 2010, I went to a spring training game, right? So I don't know, not everybody has to be familiar with baseball or love sports. That's fine, right? We all have different interests. But in baseball, before the major league season starts, they have what's called spring training. And they go to somewhere warm, either Florida or Arizona. They practice, they prepare, they play preseason games, they get ready. And so me and my buddy went to Arizona, where the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I'm a diehard Los Angeles Dodgers fan. I was born in LA. As a side note, my daughters have Dodgers related names. The oldest is Brooklyn, because that's where the Dodgers were originally from, Brooklyn, New York. And then the youngest is Mattingly. He was a Dodger coach, manager. So anyway, you can see how much I love baseball. But we went to these games, and watching the games was not even the most fun part. The most fun part actually was watching them practice. And maybe there's a lesson in that too, a sidebar lesson, is just to see how hard these professionals worked to do the kind of drills I did as a little kid, right? Fielding the ball as it's rolling towards you, and practice hitting and practice running and all the different things they did. But when they were practicing, we were walking by one of the small practice fields, and I saw a player whom I knew to be a Taiwanese professional baseball player. His name is Guo Hongzhi, and he's from Tainan. And he played professionally in Taiwan for many years and in the United States. And at that time, he was a Los Angeles Dodger. And he was on a practice field kind of doing some things. And I don't know what it is about when you're a baseball fan, you always want to get these baseballs, right? When you're watching a game, they hit a home run or they hit a foul ball, you want to catch it, or you want to get, I don't know what's so valuable about touching a ball that a Major League Baseball player has thrown. So I walked up to a crowd of people that were kind of yelling out to him, trying to get his attention so he would throw them a ball so that they could keep as a souvenir. And on the back of his jersey, it says his name. It says KUO, right? And that's one kind of romanization of a Chinese name, of a Taiwanese name. And, you know, pronounced in Mandarin, it's Guo, but, you know, most Americans don't speak Chinese. So they were saying, hey, Guo, throw me a ball. Hey, Guo. And I spoke Chinese, so I start yelling out to him, kind of like, hey, Guo Xiansheng, you know, I'm speaking Chinese. I can say his real name. And I'm telling him, hey, in Chinese, I'm like, hey, I know you're from Tainan. I used to live in Tainan too. I spent a couple of years there, and just kind of starting to chat with him. And he immediately looked over there and like, kind of looked, I was like, hey, could you please just toss me a ball and all this? And so he looked over at me, kind of pointed, and I had a mitt, and he threw the ball, and I caught it. And a bunch of people kind of dived and tried to catch it in front of me, but I got it. And, you know, that was a cool moment for me, right? Okay, so what's the big deal about getting a ball? Not a whole lot, you know, in sort of international affairs, one little baseball isn't a big deal. but I think it highlights the importance of understanding language and culture and people and those relationships. And so, the fact that I could speak Chinese, the fact that I knew a little bit about him, that he was from Tainan, and I could say a few things about the city of Tainan and where I'd lived, and just could kind of build a relationship, right? And that's what you guys are going to be doing, is building relationships. And those relationships matter. What you can do and your expertise, those are important too, and showing that you have the technical know-how to do it. But truly building those relationships goes a really long way. And so I would encourage you while you're here, maybe you won't get a baseball from Guo Hongzhi, but you'll have similar experiences in which you can connect with people, right? And you can have lasting memories, and you can build those relationships, that not only for now, but for the future. How did I get to a point where I could do that, where I could understand some of the culture and I could understand the love for baseball in Taiwan and this part of Southern Taiwan, Tainan, and this pitcher Guo Hongzhi? When I was 19, when I was in college, so, maybe similar to some of your ages, during my college years, I spent 2 years in Taiwan as a volunteer for a different organization. And I, had an amazing experience and opportunity to live an immersed experience among the Taiwanese people, and really loved every minute of it. The people you'll find to be, as you're getting to know them, are so welcoming. So, all I had to do was say, ni hao. And they're like, wow, your Chinese is amazing. And they want to talk to me and make friends, and just so welcoming and understanding. And, one of the things I remember, yeah, somebody's saying in the chat that they have to say that the Yankees are the best, but, we'll save that for the World Series if we can get Yankees and Dodgers together. But when I was in Taiwan, noticing these wonderful people, one of the things I also remembered and have cherished is the food and the culture. And so I think one of my earliest memories of when I was there was the Taiwanese breakfast. So I got to encourage you all, you have to go out to these little breakfast shops, and it's just the smells, and it's just the local people that run their little shop. It's often a family running it together, and they have the soy milk that they make, the doujiang, and they have danbing, which is like, it's kind of like a Taiwanese omelet in a way. And they have these mantou stuffed, these steamed buns, and youtiao, which is a long, kind of like it translates as oil stick, but it's kind of like a long donut or something. Anyway, it's all very simple, but it's so delicious. And this seems cheesy to say it, but it kind of is made with love. It's like you think about something your grandma made or something. There's like that homemade touch, and there's just a feel unlike anything else. You just have that, you're in that little shop and you're having that food and, talking to the local people. And so I just had a great opportunity from an early age to feel a part of Taiwan. And after that, just to quickly kind of run through my experience, you don't want to hear all of it, but went back to college and continued to kind of hold on to the Chinese language abilities I had developed, and always wanted to serve. And so what you guys are doing, it really is about service. And as I finished college and was in graduate school, I kept thinking how much I wanted to get back to serving and being overseas. And so I joined the Foreign Service, which, Dr. Nadeau said, right now I work at the Foreign Service Institute, which is where in Washington, D.C., where we train our diplomats. We train them in language, we train them in how to write, how to speak, how to reach out to people and be diplomats, and how to represent America abroad. And so in like 2002, I joined the Foreign Service and became an American diplomat. And, in the course of, I've now been with the State Department for 20 years, I've had the chance to serve in Taiwan a couple of times. I've served in Beijing over in China. I've served in Guangzhou over in China, served in Frankfurt, Germany over in Europe, and in DC. And anyway, have just had amazing opportunities to, continue to serve. And so that's what I really see what you guys have this opportunity. I mean, you've heard this probably from a lot of people, and you hear it for the next year and your whole life is, you're Fulbrighters forever now. Nobody takes that away. And that means a lot. It means a lot. And it's been great to see what Dr. Nadeau and his team, that team there is amazing. And they really have built up that brand again in Taiwan. Fulbright meant a lot in previous decades to, democratization and to the growing economy and to so many things in Taiwan. And it's meaning that again. And you guys have a chance to be a part of that. And so, whether you end up, staying in the field of education or whatever your other pursuits are, if you end up, working in government or in private business or whatever, you can have opportunities to continue to engage that region. You know, Taiwan right now, obviously people watch the news, and maybe some of you have relatives or parents or friends that when they heard you were going to Taiwan, weren't even really clear where that was, right? I mean, so as an example, my daughter, who's turning 12 tomorrow, actually, you know, so she did 4 years of school at the Taipei American School. And she was talking to, now I forget, one of our neighbors or a teacher or somebody. And this was just recently. And they were talking about where she'd been. And she talked about being in Taiwan. And this adult, you know, who's lived in Utah her whole life and hasn't really got out much, said, oh, so how do you like Thai food? You know, like Thailand. And oh, you must like Thailand a lot. And so didn't know the difference between Taiwan and Thailand. And, you know, I'm not saying that to, you know, make fun of this person or denigrate them, but it's just not everybody has these opportunities to get out and see the world. And you have that. And, you know, it's important to understand Taiwan because it is an important place, right? And, you know, I could get into all the, you know, people watch it in the news. And so I'm saying your family members probably see it in the news now and maybe wondering, what's going on? You know, and it's kind of a paradox because you hear it in the news and these geopolitical relationships with China, with America, what's going on in that region. And people may feel like, wow, that might be dangerous. And yet on a day-to-day basis, it's the safest place almost in the world, right? I mean, in terms of just, I always tell people there's nowhere I wouldn't dare walk at night, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock, any city, any place in Taiwan and feel totally safe. And in America, I'm not sure I could actually say that. And so, you know, Taiwan's a really great place. And it is important right now to have people that develop some expertise and some affinity, some love for Taiwan, because as you do go about, you know, furthering your careers, to have people that have that connection, that understanding. You know, Taiwan has such a rich history. You know, and of course there is Chinese language and historical influence there, of course, but there's also a strong indigenous population, right, that has influenced Taiwan. There is Japanese influence. There is American influence. I mean, there's an island culture type influence, right? I mean, it's just, there's so many things that come together that make Taiwan, Taiwan. And if you just read the newspaper and you see the phrase, you know, it's crazy because they never use this phrase in Chinese. But if you read in English, you'll see this, you know, renegade province or something that China considers it. You know, nobody really says that. And really doesn't tell the true story of what Taiwan really is. And so, you know, I don't want to belabor that, but other than to say, you know, when I served at AIT, so the American Institute in Taiwan, and you'll have some interaction, I'm sure at some point with them and ongoing, but, you know, we do have some restrictions in terms of US government's interactions, more so when you're not in Taiwan, like, you know, certain things we can say and can't say and do because we don't have an official embassy there. But what's great about what you guys do is you don't have those same restrictions, you know, and you're there to be those people on the ground. And, you know, sometimes America worried about whether we should fly the flag at AIT. Well, we've been doing that since 2009 now, right? And we wondered about whether or not, if you ever go to the AIT building in Nehu, you'll see the Great Seal, this big, huge, you know, the eagle, the Great Seal of the United States on our building. Well, that was kind of new in recent years. We didn't do that before because only an embassy can do that. And so we're evolving in how we interact with Taiwan. But again, you don't have those same kind of restrictions. And so it's wonderful that you can be out there on the ground, you know, meeting with people, helping them learn, helping them understand America, helping them grow in the English language. And so I just want to encourage you to take full advantage of this opportunity. It is a time to get to know these people, to get to help them on their goal towards that, as was spoken about earlier, the bilingual nation goals, to help have advocates for Taiwan's, you know, involvement in the international community, and to help protect, in a sense, Taiwan and its interests. And so I just want to, you know, again, congratulate all of you, and let me, you know, just I'll throw something out there quickly, if anybody, and I can even put this in the chat, but I can't help but be kind of a recruiter for the State Department too, or, you know, I've had a great opportunity to serve our country. And if there are those who are interested, you know, in kind of better understanding the State Department, again, you're there in Taiwan, you'll have interaction with some of my current colleagues at AIT, but I'm also happy to answer questions. anytime. So I can put it in the chat too, but my State Department email, not my personal, my State Department email, which is a good way to reach me, is pendletonjs@state.gov. And so it's my last name, PENDLETON JS as in Sam @state.gov, state.gov. And I can type that into the chat here in a second, because I'm going to have to drop off in a few minutes, probably a few minutes after I talk. But yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions about, my experience with Taiwan, or my experience in government in general, any of that, and happy to do it. And I really just want to encourage you guys to take full advantage of this opportunity in Taiwan, because it's amazing. It'll be the greatest thing you've done in your life to this point, and it'll be something you can build on for the rest of your life. So congratulations and good luck in your efforts. It matters. What you do really matters. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Jared. I think you all can see how lucky I was that Jared was my first board chair when I came on, and we have some parallel histories. I first came to Taiwan when I was quite young as well, and those kinds of experiences where you just develop this kind of love for this place, I can totally relate to. And thanks for the really great stories, Jared, about Guo Hongzhi. I think that was a wonderful story about getting that baseball. And
you see how it can matter, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
baseball is a small thing, but yet,
Right.
And in the last 4 years training our diplomats in Taiwan, I try to share that, you want that in Chinese, they say that, that kind of jingshan, that kind of spirit, that kind of attitude,
Yes.
that kind of passion for these things. You got to have that, and that's part of what you guys will do, is build those personal relationships through that.
That's right. That's right. There's another term, mochi, which is a kind of connection, a kind of intuitive connection, emotional connection that you will all experience with your communities. And I'll just say one last thing, just to underscore what Jared was talking about, and that is that, our ETA program is all over Taiwan. I mean, you guys are going to some incredible places, and many of the schools that we have our ETA program are otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to have a fluent speaker of English among them. And you're going to be in some of you will be in very small, even remote communities. And I always say that even though I've been coming to Taiwan for 30 years, in many ways, you ETAs will know Taiwan better than I do, because you're there living in, real communities on a daily basis, getting to know people, sharing with them, and they're sharing with you, and you will see how hospitable and welcoming they are. And you will really come to know this place. And so, as Dr. Pendleton said, you're the ambassadors, because you're bringing the heart of who you are to Taiwan, and they're sharing their hearts with you. So it's really a special moment, a special year of your lives, and I hope you'll experience it that way. Well, our time is up, Jared. So thank you so much for these really warm remarks, and it's great to see you. And
great to see you too. Yep,
appreciate it very, very much.
Absolutely. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for listening to my stories. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, according to the schedule, we get a little bit of a break now before our next speaker. So, Kevin, am I right that we've got a 5-minute break now? Or
before we go to the break, can we have a big photo together?
Oh, okay, Jared, come back. All right.
Yes. Okay, are you guys ready? Please turn on your camera. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, say cheese. Okay, one more.
All right. Okay.
One more. Okay, 1, 2, 3, say cheese.
Great.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you again, Director General Lee, Dr. Pendleton, for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. We have a third speaker coming along, but let's take a 5-minute break now. And is that right, Kevy? And
Yes.
and come back together again at 10:15.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all. Welcome back. So next, we invite a very important speaker for us. So we will invite Dr. Dodo to introduce her.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Kevi. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the welcome from Nicole Lee and Jared Pendleton earlier today. Our next speaker is part of our Introducing Taiwan series that we're presenting over this orientation and really on throughout the year. We're going to have the opportunity to hear from many different voices, many different communities in Taiwan. And as I mentioned the other day, with the hope that you will have a richer appreciation for the diversity of Taiwan, its hybrid identities, its mix of cultures and influences and peoples that make this such a unique place. So we'll have a number of presentations, films, speakers, and so on throughout this orientation and onward for you to have that opportunity. But of course, that being said, that's kind of the macro view, but you're also getting the micro view once you're in your communities and you're going to be learning about your particular communities and their diverse identities in a very immersive way. So that'll be the best part. But we hope that these presentations also give you some context and broader appreciation for all that Taiwan is and has to offer. So our next speaker is Maria Ting. Maria is the president of the American Club of Taipei, and she's a full-time volunteer in many cultural and philanthropic organizations. She's a good friend to us at Fulbright Taiwan, and I believe that many of you, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm not sure if it's all of you or part of you, will actually have the opportunity to have a lunch at the American Club in our in-person orientation at the end of August. So anyway, we're happy to include the American Club among our many friends in Taiwan. And so Maria Ting will represent her, some of her thoughts and introduction about Taiwanese culture to you this morning. One of the things I'll also mention is that Maria is part of an organization that is dedicated to teaching people, especially international visitors, about Taiwan and offering visitors really deep and interesting and engaging kinds of walking tours and other kinds of cultural immersion activities that I think are really fantastic. So Maria, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that organization as well. But anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce Maria. I do have to apologize because I have some other meetings, and so I won't be able to join you for the entire presentation, but I'm sure that all of our grantees will enjoy hearing from you and learn a lot about Taiwan in your presentation. So Maria, are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll do my
Great.
best. Thank you so much, Randall.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody from Taipei. My name is Maria Ting, and I did prepare a PowerPoint presentation. I literally finished it this morning, so it's still fresh off the presses. If I could trouble someone to share that. Great. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, I want to thank Randall for the warm introduction. My role currently is the president on the board for American Club, which I'm in my second term. But I guess as a little bit more introduction to give you some context on where I'm coming from with my perspective, I'm in my 51st year life journey, which began in Taipei. So I am native to Taipei. And up to when I returned in 2009. There were many stops along the way in Dusseldorf with my family. You see my dad and my mom and my younger sister on the upper left corner. It was primarily because my father's work that we were there for 2 years, and then we came back to Taipei. Then again, because of him, we moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, followed by a year in Morgantown, West Virginia, while he was getting his advanced degree, after which we returned as a family back to Taipei. And at that point, because I've been abroad for so long, I attended the international school here in Taiwan, first the Dominican school and later on Taipei American School that you heard Jared mention. And then when I graduated from high school, I went to New York City for college and graduate school, started working, got married, and then came back with my husband. You see there, and then our 2 daughters in 2009. And so with the blink of an eye, I've been back over 10 years, and it's been really wonderful. And a little bit more about my background: I received an education in economics, urban planning, consider my career to be in US public finance, which sort of ended as I came back, but I've done various work for real estate development until I decided to turn professional as a volunteer. Next slide, please. Thank you. But I really want to share with you the experience that I was able to have back in 2014. I was invited by some friends who received an opportunity to offer a tour to visiting fellows such as yourself. It was a 3-week visit, and it was coordinated through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And our job was to basically create and customize what they will experience for 3 weeks in Taiwan. And we had termed that trip Mosaic Taiwan. My role was basically speaking in English, doing my best to translate and convey what the program was about. But in the process, I learned so much because, as you see earlier in my other slide, I feel I am more a foreigner to my own native country than I am knowing about where I come from. Growing up, I traveled whenever I could abroad rather than really staying island bound to understand my own culture. My understanding of Taiwan was limited to my grandparents, their friends, my schools, and that's about it. And what I watched on television, books that I read, but I felt it was quite one-dimensional. And so when I was given this opportunity to sort of speak the English spokesperson for this Mosaic Taiwan trip, I really benefited so much. And I continue to wish to become that explorer of my own culture and to be able to share it with visitors from abroad. And I use Explorer, kind of recalling Dora the Explorer, for those of you who may remember that cartoon. It's a favorite of my daughter. Next, please. So the title of this talk is Taiwanese Culture Exploration. What is Taiwanese and Taiwanese culture? I think there are many ways to define it, but I choose to sort of put it into these 2 categories. There's the island of it, right? The nature, the beauty of the island, all that it offers. And then its residents, which go back past and present, and the culture that they each bring to the island. And I guess I'll start with nature. If I could ask, am I able to control this slide? No, okay. Next slide, please. So to begin with nature, and the highlight that I wish to convey are the mountains of Taiwan. It has the highest density of tall mountains in the world. There are a lot more mountains in Taiwan than just the 286 I cite here, but there are over 286 summits that are of that height. And so it truly is a hiker's paradise. And while I have the map in front of you, I will refer to a few of the high peaks, but here in the red, that's in the middle of the island, that's Yushan, Jade Mountain, that's the highest peak of Taiwan. And then to its left, you'll see Alishan Mountains, which is one of the most popular mountains to be visited in Taiwan. And then somewhere in the middle is also Hehuanshan, also called Joy Mountain, which is perfect for stargazing. But as you see, the mountain range goes up and down, sort of splits the island in half. And on the eastern side is also really beautiful with the view of the Pacific Ocean, which I'll go into a little bit more. And then on the left is China. And then you'll have, I know that there are some of you who will be going to Kinmen Island, and then there's Penghu as well. These are still places I want to visit, but I have heard from and seen many beautiful images from those locations from friends. But we are truly blessed to be able to have the nature beauty that is Taiwan. And so next slide, let me go a little bit more into details about the mountains. I really hope you will take advantage of any downtime you were able to have to visit these beautiful sites. These mountains are probably a little bit harder to get to on a one day or a day long basis. But just to list a few, Yushan I mentioned, it's the highest in East Asia. You can get there by way of Sun Moon Lake, another really beautiful location in the middle of Taiwan. Alishan is a place that I went to as a child, and for its sunrise. It's also really beautiful, and I think it's accessible through the Jiayi high-speed rail station with other public transportation modes. And then Hehuanshan I mentioned, also called Joy Mountain. It was certified as the first international dark sky park. So, you know, when you get up there, I think usually during the summer months, you will be able to view the sky. That's a picture I got from the internet that gives an inkling of it. But, you know, the benefit of the dark sky park also is it says how much Taiwan is doing in terms of sustainability and preserving nature to away from sort of the lights, you know, light pollution. And I guess one of the other things I wanted to mention throughout my presentation is that Taiwan, being as small as we are, given we really contribute a lot, I think, to the greater society and the world. And so there are a lot of hidden heroes of Taiwan in the Taiwan economy, in all the work that Taiwanese people are doing. And I hope you'll find the time to explore that during your year or two here. On the left-hand side is a book by Richard Saunders, who is a longtime resident of Taiwan. He moved back to England just right before the pandemic, but during his decades here, he came first as a piano teacher and really fell in love with the island. And he has basically hiked every trail in Taiwan and put it in a series of books. And it highlights, I just put it in there as a reminder to myself that even though there are these beautiful mountains to climb, but there are lots of daytime trails you can do, even right here in Taipei City, just a few steps from MRT stations. So something for you to consider. Next slide, please. More on the nature of Taiwan. There are a large number of endemic plants and animals. I highlight the plants here on this slide in a high concentration. I mean, for a small island such as ours, it's actually quite incredible. I think there are over 4,000 species that are native to Taiwan in terms of plants, and 1,067 of them are unique to Taiwan. And so for a little island, I do find that quite amazing. And the variations in our climate allow for the variation in agriculture. And one of our most famous, I think, plants, if you will, would be our tea. And I'll mention more of that in the food section of my presentation, but our climate really suits them very well, particularly oolong that are in the high mountains, because we're in a subtropic climate. That cool humidity really allow them to thrive and for us to produce really world-renowned level of oolong tea. And I highlight a botanic conservation center, which is funded by Dr. Cecilia Ku, and that's located all the way at the southern tip of Taiwan in Pingdong. And its mission is to conserve tropical and subtropical plants and maintain rich biodiversity. And their goal is to collect over 40,000 different taxa by 2027, which is coming up. And they don't do it just here in Taiwan, they go abroad to collect the sample. And I think many have called it sort of the Noah's Ark of plants right here in Taiwan to preserve, again, to preserve our climate globally. And so that's someplace that I feel is very special. If you ever make it down there, maybe somehow we can coordinate a visit. The center is headed by Professor Li Jiawei, who is a professor of life sciences in Tsinghua University, which is in Hsinchu. And he also served on the National Science Museum in Taichung when it was first built. He is just full of knowledge and a really exciting person and very dedicated in preserving our environment. He himself studied, I think, the oceanography in Santa Barbara or San Diego, which, oops, I forgot, but we have really world caliber academics who are doing a lot on their part to bring this, to do this for Taiwan. Moving on, next slide. That's great. Oh, well, I wanted to share with you. I feel like as I was preparing this presentation, I don't know that I can speak as well as some of the images that you can see through film and even programming. I did ask if I could use a few minutes of this presentation to show you through the YouTube link on this slide, this Beyond Beauty Taiwan from Above. Why don't we play it first and we can chat more about it later.
"这是我们的岛屿，我们的家。我想，从来没有一个人可以用像鸟一样、像一片云一样的高度，去认真的去观察台湾。这样的一个角度跟高度，你才可以真正去理解台湾，理解它的美丽跟哀愁。看见台湾，齐柏林就是用那样的高度带我们去看台湾，去理解台湾，甚至去爱台湾。 欢迎大家到戏院来看见台湾，看见台湾的美丽跟哀愁。
Great, thank you. Thank you. And I'm sure many of you may have already seen this already. This was the preview for the documentary back in 2013. Unfortunately, as many of you may also know, the director passed away in a helicopter accident as he was trying to make the sequel to this. But I think this film, even in that short preview that we're watched together, gives you a glimpse of sort of the many facets of Taiwan in terms of its geography. You see the high mountain peaks, you see the beaches, there's rough beaches, there's beaches that you can play on. And Taiwan, like I believe Dr. Pendleton mentioned earlier, it's just full of so many influences and so many views that it's hard not to fall in love with it, I think. And the other show that since of COVID, I've been watching a lot of Netflix. And this actually is a program here in Taiwan, but that's now on Disney Plus called Extreme Forest. And he is an actor, Chen Bo-ling, who also, because of the pandemic, has less jobs. And he decided to spend about a month time documenting, going around Taiwan with his friends and doing a lot of camping in the process. Now that's become quite popular in Taiwan, is camping. And he's able to go to Alishan as well, go down to Tainan to look at some of the wetlands. So for me, again, someone who is trying to explore my own culture as much as possible, this program, if you are still in quarantine and have Disney Plus, could check it out. All right, moving on. And thank you for your chats, by the way. I will verify if Dr. Lee is from Santa Barbara, but definitely from the UC system. Okay, so moving along, there's so much more about nature I can go on, but is it already time? Oh my goodness. I thought I would not be able to fill the 40 minutes, but I better move it along. So what Taiwan is also, I think, is made up of its residents, right? And here I try to list the different groups. I mean, we have the indigenous peoples that Dr. Pendleton referred to. There are currently 16 tribes that are officially recognized, and Ami being the most popular. But you see that they only comprise 2.3% of the Taiwan population. We're, by the way, about 23 million total. And then the Han Chinese, is the majority of it. And there's a bit of a timeline that you see as to how they came about to this island. On the right of the screen, I kind of listed the Western or foreign influences, if you will, to Taiwan. I believe you'll be visiting Danshui, where the Spanish had a settlement there during the mid-1600s. They were later defeated by the Dutch, who came on in Tainan. And then of course, later on in 1895, after the first Sino-Japanese War, Taiwan was occupied by the Japanese. And then during the sort of Western or foreign influence, if you will, there's missionaries that have come to Taiwan and really had tremendous impact on our community. I myself am a Roman Catholic. And so again, part of my view growing up here was a lot of going to the churches, some really beautiful and century old now throughout Taiwan. And it's just wonderful how they add to our culture. I list Luma Association because this is an organization I've come across recently through a friend who is Ami, and they're doing so much to try to build up the indigenous language. As I meant, the indigenous people have pretty much assimilated into sort of the Han society or Chinese society over the years. And now the young people are losing their ability to speak their native tongue. And so I find this organization so fascinating. They're always looking for volunteers, to help build their schools. They're really doing it from scratch. And so you could also check out their YouTube channel to see more about what they're doing. And now it's not just the Ami that they're working on. They're working with other tribes as well. Okay, next slide, please. All right, again, I feel like I'm trying trying to market these programs, but the first one I want to highlight is Secrets of the Ocean Tribes. It's a National Geographic documentary that just came out this year, and it's co-hosted by Yoshi Fu, who is a contemporary Indigenous artist based in Scotland, actually. And you see him in the picture on the right in the middle, participating in a festival. And this program, which is a three-part series, really talk about the Austronesian migration, which is believed to have originated in Taiwan. And it's beautifully filmed, and it talks about the connection, again, from Taiwan to the outside world. So even though we're a small island, the influence that we have and the impact that we have goes beyond just our island. And then I list this other television program. I haven't had a chance to see it, but it is the full name is called Sakalu Formosa 1867, and it does talk about the rover incident in 1867. And you can, I won't read what's on the slide, but it's another TV drama that kind of highlights sort of the tensions and also the aftermath of, good way, of these kind of influence history in our culture. Next. All right, then I move to food. I think Dr. Pendleton mentioned the breakfast, the youtiao. That is really good. And here I try to find representation of the snack food, which we call 小吃, little eats here. And many are found through restaurants or even at the night market. It does reflect the diversity of its residents. In the previous slide, or what I was trying to convey is there's been so much influence in Taiwan, whether it's through the indigenous tribes or the Han Chinese, or even the foreign influence, dantao, which is the custard, a very popular dessert that's served with the dim sum, but it actually came about through the Portuguese. And beef noodle soup is something I want to highlight. It never existed in Taiwan before, but it's made with different ingredients mixed together. I think the base is more Sichuan in flavor, but it doesn't represent anything like the soup noodle you'll actually eat in Sichuan. So it's become sort of the specialty of Taiwan that we have competitions about the best noodle soup, beef noodle soup every year. And so that's just to highlight sort of what our cuisine represents. And the small eats that I mentioned, the night market is probably the best place to experience them all at the same time. And here in Taipei, the Ningxia night market, which has been around for quite a bit, they even have a feast that's laid out for you, where they have their night market full stalls prepare 1 or 2 dishes, and you're sitting down like you're at a restaurant. They call it 1,000-year feast because each of the stalls represent more than 5 decades of history. So when you add it all together, it's probably over 1,000 years. So that's a fun activity you can do together if you're in Taipei for some late night snack. Next. I want to highlight tea and Dadao Chen a little bit. I believe we're going to be able to have an opportunity to walk with other Fulbright scholars later on in the fall through this area in Taipei in Datong district. It's an important trading port in the 19th century, and it's still a major historical tourist attraction and shopping area. It's done its best to try to preserve the Baroque architecture that you kind of see represented at the top of the slide. And in addition to tea, where there are tea houses for sure to enjoy and to taste the different teas, it also is a neighborhood that has history with fabric, with Chinese medicine, and then with different types of what we call South-North stuff that you would come across that you need to make Chinese food, the dry goods. So it's a fun walk to go through either with a tour guide or even on your own. Lots to see in this area, and it holds very significant historical significance for Taiwan. Next. Right, more of shows you can watch in quarantine or in your spare time that deals with food. The small snacks I mentioned, night market, you probably know about, but recently I've come across this street food about jiayi, and they go beyond more than the food that you are served at the night market. It talks about sort of how these stalls come from family and the struggles and the drama that behind the dishes. You know, you may just zoom through the stalls a little bit, not knowing the history of how this is passed down from generation to generation. There's a lot of not just the food preparation, but sort of, you know, the culture aspect, like when the older generation really want the second generation to do something other than, you know, doing street food, the struggle that sometimes families have in this industry. And then Gold Leaf is a new drama. I haven't seen this one either, although I'm told the American Club is referenced in episode 6, but it talks about the tea trade. And lastly, another show which you may know about Din Tai Fung, based on their story. The wife of the founder of Din Tai Fung is Hakka. And I think the story, in addition to the food, is really talking about the Hakka culture. That's part of Taiwan as well. Next, I am almost done with my time. I'm a little worried. Oh, good. Okay. Nearly. Toward the end, I also want to highlight religion. I mentioned I'm Roman Catholic, but in Taiwan, I think the majority tend to be Buddhist or Taoist in a religious belief. But what strikes me really is how diverse the island is in terms of religious beliefs, right? Half the population are followers of one or a mixture of recognized religions. As you walk along, there's probably a temple or church every square kilometer. I mean, that kind of density tells you what religion, how much that holds in our community. And some of these, from an architecture standpoint, is just beautiful. And I hope you'll have a chance to walk through the temples wherever you are. They're set up, yeah, the second photo is Confucius Temple, and the one above it is Longshan Temple in Taipei. And then the last one at the bottom is oh my gosh, I'm forgetting is a Buddhist temple for sure, but that Buddha is quite impressive. Fo Guangshan, thank you, Billy. Fo Guangshan in Kaohsiung, but there's also little temples that are off the road to give thanks and prayers to the ground gods, you know, to protect the earth, and Baoan Gong, which is a temple that my friends and I have taken some visiting videos about, especially during the time of the pandemic, when in the past there may not be hospitals or clinics easily available. People go to temples to pray for health, right? And then get sort of like a prescription, if you will, or they pray to see if they will get better, etc. The prescriptions you then take to a Chinese medicinal shop to get some herbal medicine to heal. And that's just a part of daily life here in Taiwan. We continue to use Chinese medicine, and I hope you'll be able to not experience it because you're ill or anything, but to be able to understand its powers and some of the healing behind it in our foods, because we use some Chinese herbs in our food as well. And I think with that, my time is up. My last slide is to thank you for the opportunity. Oh, wait, I think I have one more slide about the pilgrimage. Yeah, this is, you know, I think the Discovery Channel had mentioned the Dajiamatsu pilgrimage is one of the top 3 world religious pilgrimages in the world. And it's one of the largest ones. It starts off in Taichung Dajia area. It's in honor of Matsu's birthday. And she is a Chinese sea goddess. First, she was a person, but then she became deified. And I believe the believers believe she provides a lot of protections, particularly to the people who earn their living in the sea. And so this is a huge festival that happens over, I think, a course of 9 days or something. Starts off in Dajia, goes through Taichung, Zhanghua, all on foot. And I think along the journey, you just come across other believers and other just friendly Taiwanese people that want to pump you up as you make this journey and in hopes to answer your prayers. It is quite the experience. And if you are able to experience that while you're here, it would be quite, there's been some restrictions due to COVID in recent years, but I'm hopeful next April 12th in 2023, great, you will be able to experience that. So with that, I think is my formal presentation. Randall was so kind to reference this little, it's not even really a company, but if you could share the last slide, I really appreciate it. It's Lehu Project. It's really my passion project, along with a few other friends who are like-minded in wanting to introduce Taiwan to our visitors more in depth, more off the the proven path, if you will. And so you can reach me at this Gmail address. We used 有朋自远方来，不亦乐乎这段话 from Confucius. Basically, to me, it means, it is such a joy to be able to welcome foreigners or visitors to our country. So it would be my pleasure if I could be a resource for you if you wish to do some more deep diving into the Taiwanese culture in your spare time. But I also want to say congratulations to all of you. Welcome to Taiwan. I look forward to meeting you at some point in person. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Maria. Really a pleasure to have your presentation. And I can say that for you to join us, 也是不亦乐乎.
谢谢.
Also a joy to have you join us from afar and to be part of our program. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed Maria's presentation and gave you some idea. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but it was kind of a preview of some programs that we are going to be having in the future. Including Flyover Taiwan, the film you mentioned, and the indigenous artist from Scotland who will be presenting for us at Thanksgiving. So that's something that we're really looking forward to also. So again, thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
Put your heart into that, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, so Kevi, I'm going to hand the program over to you at this point, and I will wish everyone a very nice morning or evening wherever you are, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Dr. Do. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Do, and thank you, Maria. And we will come back at 11, so you can take a break. See you later. Okay, welcome back. So for this session, we are honored to invite our DEI community member, and she's also the founder and president of Taiwan Multicultural Counseling Association. And every time when we have problem with like the DEI issues, we will consult Yvonne to help us to solve the problem. So she's going to talk about talking about like cultural differences in the classroom. So let's welcome Yvonne to.
Hi, thank you, Kevin, and nice to see everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Can you hear me, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, so if anytime my sound is breaking up, please stop me and
Okay.
I'll repeat. Yeah. So my name is Yvonne. First name is Yifang, Y-I-F-A-N-G. Some of you in your states, you might have Yifang Taiwan fruit tea. That's how I introduce my name. That's exactly how it's spelled. But I do not own that bubble tea shop. I was an international student in America, in the United States for 10 years. For 10 years, I went there for college, master's degree, and I stayed to work. I obtained a work visa after that. And I came back to Taiwan about 8 years ago. My job is a counselor. So I'm a bilingual counselor in Taipei and Taichung. The majority of my clients are English speaking, either expats, international students, biracial couples, their families, or immigrants in Taiwan from all over the world. And like Kevin said, I'm also the founder of Taiwan Multicultural Counseling Association because I think culture is important, but that's not a topic that people talk about here in Taiwan like they do in America. And today is for me, it's very ironic because most of you are in Taiwan or about to be in Taiwan. I'm currently in California. And thanks to the COVID, thanks to the pandemic, we can do this online. So I get to talk to you and share my experience across the ocean. We can have the reverse role here. Before any talk, I'd like to talk about the why we are meeting here in this 40 minutes. If you know Simon Sinek, he is his TED video talks about the golden circle, starts with the why, not the how or the what. Why are we here? I guess all of you want a good experience in Taiwan in the next year, and you want to be the teacher you want to be. So I encourage you to take something away from this, either typing in the chat room, ask me questions or respond in the end. Any interaction will be great. You know what? I think you are going to be a different person by the end of the journey. Most of you are staying for a year, the most 2. If you want to, you're going to become a very different person, not because of your job, but because how much you are starting to turn on your antenna to perceive Taiwan, to learn about the culture, to learn from people who are different from you and your upbringings and your experiences. So all of us are coming from different state and country. During my 10 years journey, I lived in many different places in the United States. I live in San Diego, Orlando, Philadelphia, Seattle, and finally San Francisco Bay Area. So I live in San Jose and San Francisco for many years, the majority of my stay. So I want to know what state are you from? If you can type in the chat room. Oh, San Jose, Chloe. Minnesota, Bay Area, New York. Wow, all over the country. Exciting. We need that diversity in Taiwan. Interesting. Okay, so I guess the diversity in your state, even in the same state, in different county, different city, is different. It looks different. So we can generalize American. We can generalize American teacher. And when you come to Taiwan to teach, you're gonna be going to different cities and suburbs, right? What city of Taiwan will you be staying if you know? Typing the name of the city, either Yilan, Hualien, Kaohsiung, Jiayi, 屏东、New Taipei、花莲、彰化、any 金门、云林、Kinmen, yes. 高雄、澎湖. Wow. You know what? Many of you are going to have the experiences, not even Taipei people, not some of the many Taiwanese people don't even have the experience you're about to have. That's because a quarter of the population live in Taipei, and Taipei people don't really go out unless for traveling. And I have to say, you come from a very diverse, very, very different culture in America, and you are about to go to very different places, very different cultures in Taiwan. So the combination of both, you're going to have very different experiences in Taiwan. So next year, if we ask you, oh, how was Taiwan? How was the experience? How do you perceive Taiwan? You're going to have many, many different answers. And that's the essence of multiculturalism. So I cannot generalize and present this and tell you what Taiwan is and what kind of students or what kind of teaching experiences you will have, because everyone is going to have an individualized, personalized experience. I want to start the session by sharing a little bit about my personal journey, because that's relevant to why we are here. After high school, I went to the United States I gave on National Taiwan University. I got in as a history major, but I gave it up because I wanted a different life, different experience. So I start all over as an ESL student. So I went to your country to learn English as an English student 20 years ago. And now I provide English counseling to Americans in Taiwan. So life is unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen 10 years later, where you will be 10 years later, what you will be doing. But this 1 year is going to bring different spice to your life. Just like when I went to America, I didn't know how that would change my life. I was a history major, but I turned out to be a bilingual counselor helping experts in my country. That's never what I thought about. And during my journey, I experienced culture shock. When I returned to Taiwan, I experienced reverse culture shock. So I assume that some of you are going to go through in the next couple of years. When I went there to study English, what motivated to go to America is because I was fascinated by the culture. Ever since elementary school, I don't know, it's beyond your age, but how many of you have heard the Golden Girls? I watched that in my elementary school. I was fascinated by the show because, wow, it's a completely different life they're living there. And they talk about gender, they talk about gender equity, and it's pretty liberating. So I told my parents I wanted to go to America, but they said, oh, no, you're too young, you cannot go. But I still went after high school. So my elementary school, the dream came true. And so I went there. But you know what? Movies are different from real life. I did not have the life in my first year like what I saw in the movies. What came to me, of course, the first year was really exciting. Everything is new, education, teachers, how they teach, what I see on the street, what people do, the government, the political situation, the social hierarchy, they're different. So I experienced a lot of culture shock. The first day of my college, I actually went to the bathroom and cried. Because some of my, first of all, professors ask us to have, to share a lot of our thoughts, personal thinking. What do you think about this? Self-expression is very important in American education. What do you think about this chapter? What do you think about this question? And I was really shocked. I was a good student, straight A student in Taiwan, but I didn't know, what does that mean? What do I think? No one asked me that before. So I was like silent and muted. I didn't know I don't know what to say. If you want me to write a report, I'll do the homework. But what do I think about the chapter? I don't know. I don't know what to say. My English wasn't that great. Some of my classmates actually told me, wow, you sound like a 10-year-old. So now I have to prove my English does not equal to my IQ. I'm not a 10-year-old. And I experienced racism and discrimination that I never had to go through in my own country. So that was a total shock. First day of school. So I went to the bathroom and cried. Should I go back? What do I do now? And I stayed. So the journey was like a roller coaster. I experienced the good and bad about America. And I came back to Taiwan. Now I can use what I learned here in my counseling work and in a lot of things. I also work with international students. Now I'm a reverse role. And my first job in Taiwan when I came back, I work in Taidong at an experimental school. The school is very unique. They have elementary school department, middle school, high school from grade 1 to grade 12. They did not have any counselors on campus ever. So I was the first counselor to start a counseling office for them, but I had to work from grade 1 to grade 12. That was quite a challenge. I spent 3 years there. So I grew up in Taipei, and I know you know how people laugh at Taipei people. They call it 天龙国, meaning that, you know, you guys live in your own world. You don't know what other cultures mean. Some Taipei people, they never live outside of Taipei all their lives. And Taipei and Taidong, they are two different countries, I have to tell you. And in Taidong, a quarter of my students are Aboriginal kids. But in Taipei, I had never had any Aboriginal classmates in my life. So that's a different world to me. So doing counseling in Taidong is going to be very different from doing counseling in America. I have to break down everything I already learned, the 10 years journey in America, and start from zero. I have to learn from my students. I have to learn from my Aboriginal students, the culture there. So I encourage you to be prepared, have that starting from zero mindset. I know a lot of you come from very good schools and you have experienced diversity in America, but what you are about to see is very different from what you saw before. And I know many of you are very good English teachers, you are compassionate, but sometimes doing the same thing in a different culture, we need to have something called cultural humility. That is to see things from the student's perspective, from their lifestyles, how they were brought up, and how the educational system is in Taiwan. So the first point I want to make is the differences between Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy in education. So just like my personal experience, I didn't know what it means to have my own voice, my own thought. Critical thinking, that's the class that I appreciate the most in college. If I didn't go to America, I've never learned that class. But in Taiwan, critical thinking is not a required course in college. In fact, I don't think we even have that class. So it's important in America to express yourself and to be unique, to be different. They don't want you to be the same. However, in Taiwan, it's the opposite. We were brought up to be followers, to be compliant, to listen to our parents and teachers, and not to cause a lot of trouble, and try not to be different. So what that means practically, when you go to your classroom, you're going to see a lot of kids extremely quiet. You are the only one who's talking in the classroom. Please don't take it personally. Even if I am holding a lot of workshops to Taiwanese counselors, it's still quiet. If I ask them, give me some example. What is your experience? Tell me what you think. Silence, complete silence. So you're going to experience some silence. That's a norm here because the kids are taught, you know, don't cause trouble. You only raise your hand when you have something good to say. and always listen to the teacher, because the majority of classes here are lecture based. And I assume that you're gonna do a lot of interactive activities, teaching English in elementary school or middle school. That's important. So designing your course, keep in mind that you might not have the same reaction you get in America. So maybe gradually starting from building a relationship and trust with them. Their listening is not that great. You might have to speak very slowly. And also, if you ask too many questions, it's anxiety. It's not respect in Taiwan classroom. Instead, maybe in the beginning, tell them exactly what you want them to do. More instructions, like a manual, step by step. What do I want you to do? Open-ended question is very scary for a lot of Taiwanese kids because they were not trained that way. So be prepared. Sometimes it's the opposite. So I'm going to pause here because I don't want to be talking, and but that doesn't apply to what you're thinking right now. Please type in the chat or open your microphone for the next 2 minutes. I want to hear if you have any questions. Ask a question now, and if you have some experience in Taiwan, respond to that. I will appreciate that. What did you remember the most? For example, from I just shared, what caught your attention? You can type in the chat room or open your microphone. Cultural humility, thank you. Having cultural humility, wow. That's a good sign.
I could say something.
Sure, Claire.
I think what stood out to me from what you said and from the course we did as well is how in America individualism is emphasized, while in many other non-Western countries, collectivism is much more emphasized. And I just found that very interesting as I was learning more about the culture from these sessions and from our class. So yeah.
Thank you, Claire. And I want to point out one thing is because you are going to different cities, right? If you go to Taitung and Hualien, or the southern Taiwan or the suburb, it's very collective. So students like to help each other. It's like a family. But if you are in Taipei, Taipei City is very competitive. So the parents will emphasize a lot on academic success. Most of them might be study abroad. They want them to go to the best high school, the best college. Very heavily emphasize on academic success. But if you go to the suburb, the south or the east, it might not be the case. Okay, and that diversity in the classroom might look very, very differently. But usually kids in the south and the east, they are very passionate, very alive. So they're cute to work with. So now I am going to read over. I might not be able to respond to all of your questions, but I'm going to read over the chat to see if anything that I can respond to. To what degree do you recommend assimilating to a Taiwanese education style via bringing elements of American education? Or is that specific to each school? That's a very good question. It is specific, but because you are English teachers, you should bring at least some elements of American education. That's why you're here. That's why they hire you. Of course, keep the good things about American education. But assimilating to a Taiwanese education style is helping you and the students, because this is your first year and this is also their first time working with you. So you don't want to be completely American in a Taiwanese classroom in the first semester. They need time to warm up to your culture. But the good thing about kids is they are quick learners. They can adapt very quickly. What else? What activities work best for trust building in Taiwanese classrooms? Well, that's a very big question. I guess some of you have good answers for that. I would just start from listening and observing their reactions, how they respond to you. Trust building. Okay, so safety, psychological safety is very important in the classroom. All the students want to be liked and paid attention to. Oh, pay attention is tricky. Some people don't want to be called their name. They don't want to be the center of attention because many Taiwanese students are introverts. So you might have to observe what they like, what they don't like. The trust building does look differently in different classroom and in different county. But I'm sure you are a very good student, you have training, you know how to build trust. Just believe in your instinct. And all of you mentioned cultural humility. If you have that mindset, you're gonna have trust. That's just gonna be a matter of time. So another person said, as a teacher in elementary school and a student in adult classes with Taiwanese classmates over the past 7 years, wow. I have seen students repeatedly uncomfortable with open-ended questions, yes, or sharing personal thoughts, opinions in classroom settings. I've also seen people grow more comfortable in this kind of settings over extended periods of time. Yes, Carissa, that's exactly right. So that was the first part, the first key point that I raised, the differences between Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy. In Taiwanese philosophy in education, they focus on unification, and they want all students to follow the same standard. But in America, they want every student to be unique. So here, following the textbook is important. They don't want any improvisation. You know, follow the calendar, follow the schedule, and grades might be very important to some parents and schools. That's their expectation. And a lot of you might feel uncomfortable with that. Why is grade the only thing you look at? But at some schools, they might be true. So your personal expectation adjustment. Okay. The second point I want to raise is power hierarchy in the school system. Power hierarchy. Okay. In American classroom, they respect the teacher, the homeroom teacher or the subject teacher. You know, this is your class. You know, you decide the syllabus, you decide what you want to do in the classroom. But in Taiwan schools, hierarchy does exist, just like any other settings in the country. Hierarchy means, of course, there's the principal and then director of academic affairs, and then the teachers and the students. They really value seniority, meaning the longer you stay at the school, the more power you have. So being the youngest teacher, I don't know if you are going to be the youngest, but being a very young or in the first year teachers or age-wise, you're young. Okay, be prepared. It's the opposite of America. America value the youth. But in Taiwan, you need to respect the elders, the seniors. So if you are 65 right now, they're gonna respect you very much. They assume you're very experienced and then very educated. You have a lot to offer. They're gonna treat you with respect. So it's in the culture. But being a young person, it's a little bit challenging. So knowing there is gonna be hierarchy in the school system is important. Otherwise, you're going to have some panic attack. You know, how come I don't have a voice? How come I propose such great, brilliant ideas and no one is listening to me? Sometimes it has nothing to do with your ideas. In Taiwanese schools, it's important who has the power, who has the microphone, who makes the decision. So the best policy is you can propose suggestions and ideas and stay on the common ground and tell them the why I'm doing this. but most of the time they want you to be aligned with their expectation. So find out their expectation. What do they expect from you before you're giving a lot and be disappointed? So find out their expectation. What do they expect from you this year? Is it great? Is it just good relationship? Help the kids to have fun, help the kids to love English. Every school might be different. And for some Asian Americans or non-white American teachers, this is the immune shot you must get before you enter the school. For a lot of Taiwanese people, even teachers and principals, especially in the South and the suburb, they think Americans equal Caucasian. So if you're not Caucasian, they're gonna be puzzled. Are you really from America? But don't take it as racism. It's not the same in the US. It's lacking experience exposing to foreign cultures, okay? What they see is the movies and, oh, Americans should be white. Okay, when you encounter that, don't take it personally. So you're gonna experience one thing called long hours. In America, weekends are yours. You know, the work and life balance is very clear. And the boundary between your professional life and personal life is very clear. Here, you're gonna notice your fellow workers, your colleagues, they never leave school. They're constantly replying to line messages, they're constantly replying to emails, like 11 p.m., they're still responding to emails. And you might be invited to have some weekend activities, like shows or events, and help them to host those events on the weekends. In Taiwan, in Taiwanese culture, especially like engineering fields or business fields, they think employees who work long hours are better employees, sometimes including teachers. So you're gonna see your colleague staying in the office and never leave. They're constantly working. And when you leave at 5 o'clock, they think, oh, what? Why did you just leave? So that's the cultural differences. You need to communicate with your supervisor or whoever is in charge of you. So long hours is a norm. Long hours is a norm. The last point I want to make is this regarding discrimination and social justice. Okay, but keeping in mind that you will not encounter the same attitudes and prejudice here like you did in America. It's not the same when we're talking about discrimination and social justice. First of all, racism has different meaning here, and it's not the issue Taiwanese people care the most. So I know that's very important in America right now, but in Taiwan, sometimes it's reversed. For example, being an American teacher is already privileged in Taiwan. I have a friend who teaches English in elementary school, public school in Taipei, and his salary is double of the local English teacher. They do the same job, and the local English teacher, they work longer hours. They do many administrative things. They do more things, but they only get paid half. Okay, so here is they respect Americans, they respect foreigners. So you become the privileged population. And so Taiwanese people, if we talk about diversity, skin color, ethnicity, it's not what people discuss here. Social economic status is. Taipei value and non-Taipei value is. And most of you will be working in non-Taipei value as you go to the suburb. So Taiwan has changed a lot in the past 10 years. And it has break the country into an M-shaped society, meaning the rich is very rich and the poor is very poor. So they care about social economic differences more than they care about skin color and ethnicity. And so what does it mean to a majority and minority here? It might not be the same in America. If you speak English, you're privileged here for sure. If you're, how can I say? Middle class and rich people, they are privileged here for sure, socioeconomic classes. And it has something to do with the education system. So depends on the city you go to, you're gonna see that very clearly. Some students, they have a lot of resources, educational resources, especially in the north, especially in Taipei City. Endless resources, summer camps, no problem, study abroad. But if you go to Penghu, if you go to Pingdong, Hualien, Taidong, they can barely survive the daily meal. Some families are like that. So it's very scarce, the educational resources they get there. And there is, in some schools, they have very, very similar socioeconomic status among the students. But in some places, it's a very, very big gap. So it takes teachers' sensitivity to be aware who are the privileged population, privileged students. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. And ethnicity is tricky. If you work in Taidong and Hualien, Aboriginal students are the majority. They might not be the minority. But if you work in Taipei or big cities, Aboriginal students are the minority. And of course, we have Hakka and Taiwanese. For example, if you work in Pingdong, they have Taiwanese, they have Hakka. Depends on which town. Sometimes the ratio is 4:1, sometimes it's 1:4. So you have to observe in your classroom who are the majority, who are the minority. It's relevant. It's relevant. It always changes, depends on the places you are. Okay, I'm gonna pause here again. And then I want you to type in either questions, feedback, or what you really appreciate hearing today, and then we can start from there. I'm grateful for the chance to be in Taiwan. Okay. When you say racism has a different meaning in Taiwan versus the US, do you mean it has different definition, or that is viewed as less important than socioeconomic inequality? I think it's both, but more the later one. Racism is not as important in Taiwan compared to socioeconomic gap. Jewish religion and culture in Taiwan, very, very few Jewish. Wow, see, this is American culture. I can't even keep up with the typings. In Taiwan, it's the opposite. It's like no one is responding, very silent. Muslim is a minority in Taiwan, but you can still find places together. Could you elaborate on Taipei versus non-Taipei value? Okay, Taipei is the capital, so it's kind of like New York. It's more westernized. It's very globalized. Taipei people are very competitive, materialistic, very competitive. So if you teach in a very competitive school, you know what that means, what is more important and what is not. And non-Taipei value, there's a sense of inferiority because Taipei is better. So the good thing about being a teacher in the suburb is they will appreciate you. As long as you speak English and you teach them English, they will be appreciated. Let's see. How does communicating work hour, weekend hour boundaries affect 关系, which means relationship with your school and community? For example, if we cannot work on weekends regularly, will this hinder good relationship? Thank you, Carissa. This is a very good question. And eventually it's going to be, you're going to encounter this. Okay, how do you communicate boundaries? This is hard. This is hard. My suggestion is you consult the previous teachers and consult their experiences. And for some of you have stayed here for longer than 2 years, even 7 years, I guess you can provide your what worked for you before. You know, it might be a difficult communication because a lot of things, they don't make sense to you. You know, why? When you ask them why, the reason they give you might not make sense. So you will be puzzled why. So the boundaries, I guess that you're gonna have to be very patient and be prepared. It might not be a one-time communication, and sometimes you might have to compromise to have that equilibrium. It might or might not hinder the relationship, depends on your school. I would be assertive of my boundaries, stand my ground in a very gentle way, because you already seem privileged and you talk like you have to listen to me. It's not gonna work here. And another thing is Taiwanese culture communication style is very indirect. So you might have to attempt multiple times, try asking the same question, different way, in different ways to get what they are really talking about. Sometimes they want to say no to you in a very non-direct way. So you just have to learn through experience. There's no trick to that. Okay. Do you have any specific ideas for working effectively teaching a classroom where there's a mix of students who have access to different levels of outside educational resources? I think it depends on your values. If you believe in equity in education, you might want to bring that concept into your classroom when you are designing your activities to listen to those minority students more. And you can teach social justice in the classroom by the stories that you share. For example, you're Muslim, you're Jewish, that's a minority. You can teach about your tradition and you know, what it's like to make it a fun activity, but at the same time teach them what America is now and what it means to be equal. Is there a specific way grading is done, or does it change from school to school? Is grading just tests or homework classwork too? In Taiwan, pretty much it's exam-based, test-based, and there is a standard of grading that you have to consult your school administrative people, academic affairs. But some schools have more flexibility there. As an American whose salary may be double our Taiwanese counterparts, how might we acknowledge that and be conscious, respectful of the disparity and inequity there? I think it's up to you, Johnny. You can acknowledge their hard work, be respectful, and thank you for how they help you to facilitate the classrooms. You can practice your cultural humility, just acknowledge that. But you don't have to have any guilt, because you deserve to be paid coming across the ocean and to contribute what you have here. Okay, so one last question. If not, open your microphone, because it's it takes more time to read, and I can't just read every line.
Hi, I would like to ask one if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Is white exceptionalism something that people are like wary about culturally? And are there ways for us to challenge that notion or minimize harm in the communities we'll be living in as a majority white cohort?
Oh, can you simplify that and give me an example? More ask me the more direct question.
So is the concept of white exceptionalism something that Taiwanese people are kind of like wary of, as in like not like a we don't want you here, but like having, if that makes sense, sorry. Like I guess another direct question is like, how do we challenge like white American exceptionalism in our communities and minimize harm that we might be causing to like perpetuate certain
Harm to who?
Sorry?
Minimize harm to the
communities,
students or
like
to
our students and the people that the places we'll be living in, and like Taiwanese people.
I don't think you should. I don't think you need to purposely focus on that. Just enjoy your stay here and be culturally sensitive. That's all you can do, because you cannot change the country in 1 year. And a lot of things you didn't cause it, you cannot fix it. That's not your responsibility to really change it. But you are a teacher. I think the greatest power is from education. And the thing is, kids are very acceptive. They don't have the concept of racism or discrimination or social injustice. They like you, regardless who you are, what you are. We were talking about adults, and adults are hard to change. So, they will learn through being with you. I think they need this 1 year of experiences being with an American to learn what American is really about. Okay, so it's not really a conversation or a speech or talk. It's like it's through your actions, through your relationship building, that people might change their mind. Yeah. Okay, I'm aware that time is up. So thank you very much. I wish that we have other opportunities to discuss this. I think this is important, and really admire you to go across the ocean to provide great education to Taiwanese kids. And good luck with you, and have a wonderful journey in Taiwan. Hopefully we can meet up again, maybe in person, who knows. Okay,
Yeah, for
thank you.
sure. Yeah, we will invite you, Yvonne, for sure, to give them the chance to talk to you in person. And I just want to add up. I want to say thank you, Yvonne, to provide this kind of discussion with us. I think it's very important for us to, pose some like critical questions. I know some of them are very hard to answer, and I don't think we can answer for now because you don't really experience Taiwan that long yet. So when you experience more, you will figure out how you can solve the problem or answer your question, or even like what kind of education you can provide for your student to know diversity more, and also know the American situation more, or even like know American more. Like when you talk about like, are all American white? Not exactly, right? But we can introduce that different kinds of like ethnicity people to you in your classroom. So I think this is very important, and that's also why we have very diverse group of our ETS and ETFs in Taiwan. And I also want to add up like some of ETS and ETF will work in Taipei and New Taipei City. So even though like Yvonne used a very macro view to talk about, there's a Tianlongguo, like a very privileged counties in Taipei, but actually when you work in your school, you'll find there are still a lot of disadvantaged students in your classroom, because sometimes this kind of privilege is based on some like a comparison. For example, like if you don't know ABC in Taipei, a kid don't know ABC in Taipei and compare it with like a kid doesn't know like ABC in Taitung, probably that's different. That's totally different. Maybe kids in Taitung is enjoying their life more, but in Taipei, maybe the parents will like push the kids to learn more. And also a teacher will think, how come you don't know ABC? Most of the students know that. How come you don't know that? So even though you are in Taipei, you will find there are some disadvantaged school or disadvantaged students that you need to help them. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we can talk about that for maybe several hours, but we'll meet you and meet you in person. And hopefully, that we can invite Yvonne again to talk with you. And then this is the end of our today's session. And thank you for your participation and a lot of good questions for us. So see you tomorrow. And you will have some like a team workshop in the afternoon for sure. Okay, so take a break and have your lunch. So see you soon.
Thank you.
Have a
Fawn.
good day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.